You've been back at Renault now for the first time since 2004 when you left for Nissan. Can you tell us what has changed the most during your absence? What have you noticed?
A few obvious topics. First, the quality of the product has improved enormously, and it's really spectacular how much through the third-party measurements we see an improvement. To give you just an example, we have now most of our high-volume cars in Germany are at the top level of reliability. I would say in some cases better than the German cars. So that's a very spectacular improvement that I can see coming back after these 7 years. Second thing that strikes me is the overall quality of our powertrains. When I see how efficient our diesel engines are, the K9, the R9 and the M9, I strongly believe that we are at the top level of performance, fuel efficiency, NVH, and overall performance. That's striking. The third point is the fact that the portfolio in terms of perception of quality inside of the cars, materials, fit and finish, equipment, it represents also a very strong step up against the previous generation. So overall, a lot about product, a lot about powertrain. I think the company did significant improvements, and that strikes me.
What in that case has been holding Renault back in terms of its market share in Europe? I mean, you're talking about its quality improvements, but what are the weak aspects? I mean, how important, for example, is design in Renault's difficulties so far?
Well, I think it's fair for those who work so hard every day on that topic to remind that we are the number 2 car maker in Europe in market share. So being number 2 in Europe is not an easy achievement. And we have been number 1, to give an example, on LCV for 13 years in a row. So I think our position in Europe is quite strong, even though on the first half we lost a little bit of market share because of our supply constraints. As you know well, Europe is a very competitive market. You need to fight every day. I think we can improve our performance in terms of brand value. There are a lot of things that we need to communicate to the customer. I would start by making sure that in the mind of our customers, the perception of quality is not lagging behind the actual quality of our cars. That's one. I think we can also do a better job in communication and marketing in terms of conveying the sense of performance of our powertrains. We are supplying the best teams in Formula One. I would like to remind that all of that technology is developed by people that we bring back to our engineering divisions after they experience the Formula One activity. So there is a lot of passion, there is a lot of talent in the company, and I would say that one of the things that we need to do moving forward is to simplify, reduce the number of priorities, and focus on a limited number of priorities.
What, if anything, are the foreseeable consequences of the debt crisis in some Eurozone countries for Renault?
So far not visible. I hope it will stay that way. So far not visible.
Under the medium-term performance plan, you're going for a 5% operating margin for 2013, but earlier today you were talking about opportunities you'd seen for more immediate profitability improvements. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, our guidance has always been on free cash flow within the 2016 Drive the Change Renault midterm plan. So our guidance is on free cash flow and will remain so. The first milestone is 500 million euros this year, which we confirmed today, as you know. There are, of course, always risks and opportunities, and we will try to address both, mitigate the risk and address the opportunities.
Where are the opportunities?
The opportunities are mostly in the growth outside of Europe. In the first half, we grew by 20% outside of Europe, and we are doing very well in Russia, in Latin America, Brazil. We are now putting the seeds in India, increasing our presence, our marketing and sales presence in China. So there are opportunities there. There are also opportunities in terms of LCVs, this time possibly in Europe, because we couldn't supply in the first half as many cars as we could sell. So that's also an opportunity, just to mention this too.
You also said today that electric vehicles aren't a bet, they're an insurance policy. This is at a time when you're actually postponing the battery plant. You plan to plan by almost 2 years. What is the issue there? What's the hold-up?
I think we shouldn't mix both. First, the reason why I'm saying that it is indeed an assurance is because I believe the stakeholders, everybody needs to understand that Renault and Nissan are taking the leadership in zero-emission vehicles. When you reach the zero-emission vehicles, you are a solution. You are not fighting to reduce by X% your CO2 emissions. You are already there because zero is zero. You cannot be overtaken. If something happens in terms of oil price, it's obvious that being a leader and having 4 cars in your portfolio, being fully electric, zero emission, is for sure a situation that protects you against any sudden change in the overall environment. So instead of talking about bets, I think we need to understand that not only we are giving Renault and Nissan strategic leadership for the future, which will be visible for the next decades, but on top of that, we are also protecting the company against any sudden change.
What's the actual cause of the delay at Flam?
Well, it's something which is related to doing the right things right. When you have such an important program, you want to make sure that everybody is aligned on the same objectives, that all the agreements are done, and then you put your teams at work in an overall frame which is completely stabilized. And I think this is a pattern that you should not be surprised with. Renault needs to work on a limited number of topics and again do the right things right with the appropriate timing. It was a no-brainer for me that rescheduling that plant was a must in order to make sure that we do the right quality job.
You're now doing it on your own, aren't you? Without any of the help that you'd expected from the French CEA agency. What's the reason for that decision?
We have a very strong partnership with the CEA, which is about developing next generation of batteries and making sure that from one side we increase the autonomy, from the other side we decrease the cost. I would say this cooperation is moving forward very well. I will visit the teams very soon, so I'm very optimistic about that.
So the CEA venture is still happening?
The CEA collaboration, of course. And it's quite deep and quite strong in terms of overall activity in engineering.
Which models are you using Nissan NEC batteries for, and which models will you be sourcing batteries from LG Chem?
We will start with AESC batteries for Fluence, for instance, and we will be very flexible in terms of adapting the supply to the products that we need to launch and the speed at which the sales will grow. So we will start, of course, by leveraging our alliance with Nissan. And
so the LG batteries are for the Zoe model, perhaps?
For other models, including Zoe.
So Zoe and subsequent models?
We didn't make decisions for all the models because that will depend on the demand and the supply balance. So that's something that we can adjust later on in the process.
Because at the shareholder meeting, Renault said that the Zoe will deliver a big range improvement over the existing electric vehicles. What sort of order of magnitude is this going to be?
I don't think we said that, or perhaps there was a misunderstanding. I think we will have for Zoe a quite similar range as for the other first 3 cars, quite similar. We will continue to work, and the CEA example is one of those, on the next generation of batteries to go to the next step of autonomy. But I don't think we should expect from the first 4 cars any significant big variance.
You're increasing the number of concessions in China to 130 in 2013 from about 50 currently. Does this prefigure a Renault manufacturing move into China?
Well, it is clear that we are not growing our network just for selling cars that we import from outside of China. So we are progressing in that direction. For us, going to China with a strategic program is a must at one point in time. The only open question at this stage is when, because again, we are already engaged in many strategic important projects like the one we have Tavares, the one we have in Morocco. So we want to do things properly. We are now preparing our strategic plan for China. It will, of course, have a manufacturing component, and it will be heavily supported by our partner, Nissan, who has a partnership with Dongfeng that is shown as one of the best partnerships in China today in the automotive industry.
If you can't tell us when you might move into China, perhaps you can tell us when a decision will be made.
Well, I can tell you that it's a reasonable goal to say that we will conclude all of this within the 2016 Drive the Change midterm plan. I think that's a reasonable objective.
Including a move into China or just a decision on China?
Moving in China.